From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
Kamala, you're fired!
I say, bring it on.
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Eric Ham, coming to you live from Washington, D.C. Vice President Kamala Harris gets a boost and Donald Trump gets targeted. More on that in a moment, but first, a look at the latest headlines. Police officials investigate multiple gunshots fired at the campaign office of Vice President Kamala Harris in Arizona for the second time in 2 weeks. The Democratic presidential candidate is expected to campaign in the key battleground state this week. Donald Trump says the United States needs to get out of the war in Ukraine, and that will only be possible if he wins re-election. His remarks come as the Pentagon is set to announce an additional $375 million military aid package for Kyiv. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to face a motion of no confidence against his Liberal government on Wednesday. Trudeau's government fell into the minority after the New Democratic Party backed out of their coalition earlier this month. China conducts its first public test of an intercontinental ballistic missile in more than 4 decades. The missile launch into the Pacific Ocean comes amid heightened tensions with the United States and its regional allies. And Japan could get its first woman or youngest ever prime minister this week as the ruling party holds its most crowded leadership vote ever. Among the 9 candidates are 2 women, as well as a 43-year-old former environment minister. We begin in the United States. Intelligence officials have briefed former President Donald Trump about specific threats from Iran to assassinate him. According to the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, these threats are very real and their motive is to sow chaos in the United States. U.S. Intel says coordinated attacks against Donald Trump have heightened in recent months and law enforcement agencies are working to ensure the former president remains safe. Intelligence officials believe Tehran is trying to interfere in the November election as it does not want the Republican presidential nominee to be reelected. During his first term in the White House, Donald Trump withdrew from Iran's nuclear deal, imposed sanctions, and ordered the killing of the Iranian military general Qasem Soleimani. Responding to the latest threats, Donald Trump said any attack on him would be a death wish for the attacker. In a social media post, he said, quote, "I am surrounded by more men, guns, and weapons than I have ever seen before. Thank you to Congress for unanimously approving far more money to Secret Service. Nice to see Republicans and Democrats get together on something," end quote. The former president has already survived 2 assassination attempts in 2 months, one in July and another in mid-September. The 2 attempts on his life have raised alarm bells with Trump's base of support.
Well, I have to be here for Trump. They just tried to assassinate him again, and I was there in Butler, and I'm having like a lot of PTSD since Butler, and I have to come out here and show that I'm strong too, because this man's out here taking bullets for us, so I have to be strong too.
I am concerned about Donald Trump's safety, but I believe God has his back. He showed it twice that he has his back. And I pray he continues to have his back. Do I think that I'm at jeopardy? Maybe. But guess what? I'll die for my country.
Authorities arrested a Pakistani man in July who had alleged ties to Iran and was charged with a murder-for-hire plot meant to target Donald Trump as well as other lawmakers. And just last week, intelligence officials revealed that Iranian hackers stole confidential information from Donald Trump's campaign and sent it to President Joe Biden's team in the month of June. Tehran has repeatedly denied these allegations, but its retort is that Washington, too, has interfered in its affairs for decades. And staying on the campaign trail in the U.S., Vice President Kamala Harris holds a significant lead over former President Donald Trump among Asian American voters. This is according to the latest survey conducted by the National Opinion Research Center, their first since Kamala Harris replaced Joe Biden back in July. The survey shows Kamala Harris leading Donald Trump by 38 points among Asian Americans. 66% of Asian Americans voters plan on voting for Kamala Harris, while 28% say they will vote for her opponent, Donald Trump. Kamala Harris expanded President Biden's lead by over 20 points as he was losing support among the Asian American community. Moreover, the poll suggests that the vice president is performing better at the top of the ticket rather than as Joe Biden's running mate.
These results reinforce what we've been hearing and seeing from the Asian American community since July. They are re-energized and poised to once again play a decisive role in the election.
The survey shows Asian Americans favor the vice president due to her South Asian background and policies on reproductive rights. However, it is her identity as a woman that is extremely powerful as a component, especially among Asian American women. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris's running mate, Tim Walz, is also popular among Asian Americans, with nearly 60% of them preferring him over Republican vice presidential hopeful J.D. Vance. In the last 4 years, the eligible voter population of Asian Americans has grown by an astounding 15%, making them the fastest growing electorate in the country. The growing demographic prioritizes the economy and jobs, followed by inflation and health care. And with such support for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, Asian Americans could prove to be a game changer in one of the tightest U.S. presidential elections in history. And now moving to the Middle East, where the situation remains tense. Nearly 2 days after Israeli airstrikes claimed at least 570 lives and wounded more than 1,800 across Lebanon, Hezbollah has launched a ballistic missile targeting the Mossad headquarters in the suburbs of Tel Aviv. This marks the first time that the Lebanon-based group has targeted Tel Aviv, marking a significant escalation. This after an Israeli airstrike killed one of Hezbollah's top commanders, Ibrahim Mohammed Qubasseh, also known as Hezbollah's missile chief. The senior Hezbollah commander was targeted in a strike in the southern suburbs of Lebanon's capital, Beirut. Israel claimed he was responsible for an attack in the year 2000 in which 3 Israeli soldiers were kidnapped and killed. Now Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who was scheduled to attend the United Nations General Assembly in New York, postponed his departure to Thursday to discuss further military action in Lebanon. Now, in an ominous sign of what's to come, Britain urged its nationals to leave Lebanon and said it was moving 700 troops to Cyprus to help with evacuations. Meanwhile, the UN Secretary General has expressed grave concern, warning that Lebanon remains at the brink of becoming a war zone like Gaza.
The message for both the special coordinator and the head of the UN peacekeeping force is the same, which is that there is no military solution that will make either side safer. With the well-being of civilians on both sides of the blue line and the stability of the region at stake, space must be given for diplomatic efforts to succeed.
Meanwhile, Iran, which openly backs Hezbollah, has accused Israel of barbarism for its recent airstrike in Lebanon.
We condemn Israeli crimes against humanity. It is imperative that the international community should immediately stop the violence and bring about a permanent ceasefire in Gaza and bring an end to the desperate barbarism of Israel. In Lebanon, before it engulfs the region and the world, Israel has been defeated in Gaza, and no amount of barbaric violence can restore its myth of invincibility.
While the situation remains critical, the UN Security Council is set to meet today to address the rising violence, and it remains to be seen if the international community that is now assembled at the United Nations headquarters can stave off a growing and wider conflict that's escalating by the hour. And in Latin America, once known as the most dangerous country in the world, El Salvador now ranks among the safest countries in the Western Hemisphere. This turnaround is the result of President Nayib Bukele's aggressive crackdown on crime by incarcerating 2% of the adult population. But critics fear this is a slide towards authoritarianism. Here's more from on the ground.
Once upon a time, a country was gripped by such violent chaos that it earned the grim title of the murder capital of the world. Streets ran with fear, gangs ruled the night, and survival was uncertain. That country is El Salvador. And now, in an almost unbelievable turn of events, the same nation has become one of the safest places in the Western Hemisphere. According to a study from last year, a staggering 88% of Salvadorians say they feel safe walking alone at night. It's a transformation that feels almost like a plot twist straight out of a movie. But how did El Salvador pull off what many believed was impossible? The answer lies in a bold, some say brutal plan. It all started in 2019 when Nayib Bukele was sworn in as El Salvador's president. The Bitcoin-loving president took it upon himself to change El Salvador's economy and crime rate. Within a few months of taking office, Bukele's government launched an all-out war on gang violence, incarcerating an astonishing 2% of the population, including gang members, affiliates, and anyone suspected of fueling the country's lawlessness.
¿Cómo puede una nación levantarse en tan poco tiempo?
The world looks at El Salvador's example and wonders how a nation can rise up in such a short time. But perhaps that is not the question they should be asking. Maybe they should be asking another question. How is it that the world is falling so fast? They say that El Salvador is swimming against the tide, because while El Salvador became more secure, the world became more insecure. While the Salvadoran people have become more optimistic, most people in the modern world have become increasingly pessimistic. And yes, they are right. The world has become divided, depressed, worried, hostile, and hopeless. And it has done so at unprecedented speed. Today, the free world is no longer free.
Streets that were once patrolled by criminal networks are now under the firm grip of law enforcement. Critics argue that the country is teetering on the edge of a police state, but the results are undeniable. El Salvador has traded fear for safety and violence for calm. The murder rate has plummeted from 18 per 100,000 people to 2.4 per 100,000 people. And the nation, which was once synonymous with danger, is now rewriting its story of security. Meanwhile, as El Salvador rises, other parts of the world are still grappling with their own battles for safety. Gallup's latest global safety survey reveals that 70% of people around the world now feel safe walking alone at night. That's a decent number, but dig deeper and you'll find regions where fear still reigns. In Ecuador, for example, once a peaceful nation, the shadow of drug trafficking has grown darker. Just 27% of Ecuadorians now feel safe, which is the lowest of any country in the world. The streets of Guayas, Ecuador's most populous province, have become a place of terror for many people, with only 11% of residents saying they feel secure at night. The disparity is stark, and the solution isn't always straightforward. While El Salvador's iron fist approach to crime may have restored a sense of peace, the data also suggests that safety isn't just about locking people away. The key, they say, lies in trust. People need to trust their local police and feel connected to their communities. It's a balance between justice and belonging. So even though El Salvador's story is a remarkable one, it's also a reminder. Safety isn't just about statistics, it's about the way people feel when they walk out their front door. When a nation like El Salvador can go from a global symbol of violence to a beacon of safety, it shows us all that even the darkest chapters can have an unexpected, powerful rewrite.
And finally, growing controversy around assisted suicide. The first case has taken place in Switzerland using what is being called a suicide pod. A 64-year-old American woman suffering from a severe immune disorder ended her life in the machine. However, the event has led to multiple arrests on charges of aiding and abetting suicide. In Switzerland, assisted suicide is legal. However, the device that was used to end her life has not been approved by the government. Our final report has more.
When the sleek and futuristic Sarco capsule designed for assisted suicide was first unveiled, it was met with more controversy than curiosity. The company behind the 3D printed pod had its eyes set on Switzerland, one of the few places where assisted suicide is legal. But authorities refused to give it the green light. And just when it seemed like the story of Sarco might end there, things took a dramatic turn. In a chilling first, a 64-year-old American woman used the Sarco to end her life in Switzerland. This incident sparked a wave of legal consequences, resulting in the arrest of 4 individuals, including a Dutch journalist and 2 Swiss nationals, on charges of inducing, aiding and abetting suicide. The death occurred in a secluded cabin in Merichhausen, a quiet, sparsely populated area nestled near the German border. Police were tipped off by a law firm, leading them to the eerie scene where they found the body and the device. Following the incident, the company behind Sarco, named The Last Resort, released a statement. They disclosed that the woman had been battling a severely compromised immune system. Present at the scene was the company's co-president, who described her death as peaceful, fast and dignified. According to the company, the woman had also undergone a psychiatric evaluation before making her final decision. Invented in 2017 by a euthanasia campaigner, the Sarco operates in a chillingly straightforward manner. A message on the screen prompts users, "If you want to die, press this button." The pod is then filled with nitrogen gas, reducing oxygen levels and causing the user to lose consciousness. Within minutes, death follows.
So you've got a precipitous drop in the oxygen level in the capsule. The person is breathing, of course, if you're alive you're breathing, a person in the capsule is breathing. They're now breathing totally oxygen devoid air. Within 2 breaths of air of that low level of oxygen, they will start to feel disorientated, uncoordinated, slightly euphoric before losing consciousness.
For those seeking more than just a clinical death, Sarco reportedly offers a customizable experience. Users can opt for either a dark or transparent view, allowing them to gaze upon a favorite landscape during their final moments. Swiss Health Minister Elisabeth Baum-Schneider has raised concerns, pointing out that the capsule does not meet product safety regulations, and its use of nitrogen violates legal standards. Still, a pro-assisted dying group promoting Sarco had predicted earlier this year that its use would become a reality soon. While assisted dying remains illegal in the UK and most of Europe, Switzerland has become a destination for those seeking to end their lives on their own terms. Thousands have made the pilgrimage to take advantage of the country's more lenient stance on assisted suicide. But with the introduction of Sarco, the debate around how and where we die has entered a new and more complicated phase.
That's our show for today. We certainly thank you for being with us. We hope to see you right back here again tomorrow. From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
Kamala, you're fired.
I say, bring it on.
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on